Constitution of the World Health Organization came into force in 1948. It defined health comprehensively as a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. When considering these goals in light of the pharmaceutical industry, it becomes clear that the market is failing. The pharmaceutical industry is driven by profits, and the current system of financing and research and development for new medicines is deeply flawed.
Warheads trained on every capital city around the globe.
First, high prices dramatically limit access to medicines. The situation is most dire in developing countries, where access to medicines is often appalling. In developed countries, the problems are less severe but very real. In the United States alone, nearly 90 million people were uninsured for all or part of 2006 to 2007. These people faced enormous challenges when diagnosed with severe illnesses.
Second, firms waste billions of dollars in marketing and research and development for medically unimportant products.
Night after night, strange sensations in my legs. I had to get up and move when all I wanted to do was rest. I had restless leg syndrome.
In terms of marketing, experts say that pharmaceutical companies spend almost twice as much as they do on promotion and marketing as they do on research and development. In terms of medically unimportant products, a simple but often overlooked question is, how much R&D do we get for the premium price? Consumers pay $8 or $9 on higher prices just to stimulate $1 in research and development funding.
Say what? Say what? Say what? Say what?
Consumers pay $8 or $9 on higher prices just to stimulate $1 in research and development funding.
Hey, I smell a rotten egg!
Third, firms do not invest in areas of greatest public need. There are three categories of diseases. Type 1 diseases are those for which the burden is roughly the same everywhere, and there's a significant market in high-income countries. They include diabetes and asthma. Type 2 diseases are those for which there is some disease burden in high-income countries, but most patients are low-income people in low-income countries. They include AIDS and tuberculosis. Type 3 diseases almost entirely afflict poor people in low-income countries. They are also called neglected diseases, and they include malaria and Chagas disease.
Neglected diseases are pretty much entirely ignored by the pharmaceutical industry because they do not attract profits.
This is an urgent problem.
These three flaws culminate in the 90-10 gap, where 90% of all the funds spent on research development benefit just 10% of the global population.
Cover up that bald spot. Instead of hiding it, solve it with Men's Rogaine Foam. In clinical testing,
This is what they spend their money on? What about the other 90% of the population? This is an incredible market failure that must be dealt with now.
The current system can and should be replaced with something better. The system for financing new drug development can be radically improved by spending less overall, aligning investment incentives more efficiently, and making drugs available to everyone at cheap generic prices.
Today, market exclusivity is the reward for drug developers. This means that they have exclusive rights to sell their drugs for 20 years. And since there's no competition, they can charge very high prices.
It's all a matter of brute strength.
And oh boy, do we have brute strength.
Economist James Love has developed a price incentive system that is a compelling alternative to the inadequate pharmaceutical market. His fundamental idea is simple.
here, let me show you.
With the prize system, a prize is the reward for drug developers. This means that they receive large monetary prizes that correspond to the actual impact of their inventions on healthcare outcomes. The price of the drug will no longer depend at all on the profits the drug developers can finesse. The prize gives pharmaceutical companies the money they need to continue and advance research.
The benefits of the prize system are significant. The three main benefits are, first, pharmaceutical companies will cut costs. Since they are awarded prizes for innovation, the cost of meaningful research and development is defrayed. They cut costs by spending less money on promoting their drugs. Pharmaceutical representatives will no longer have the incentive to bribe doctors to prescribe the company's drugs. And because the pharmaceutical company's profits are no longer tied to the sheer quantity of products sold, they will not benefit from expensive marketing campaigns.
Second, the prize system will lower drug prices. High research costs will no longer inflate drug prices. With the prize system, the price of drugs is completely separate from the company's profit. Instead, they are able to set the price of the drug at the lowest possible price. The people who give the prizes can negotiate the intellectual property rights of the new medicine with drug developers. It is possible to ensure that a pharmaceutical company will relinquish its legal monopoly over its product. Therefore, the drug will go on the market at a lower price, making it available to more people.
Third, companies will develop drugs that reflect people's needs. Without prizes, pharmaceutical companies will not have any interest in researching drugs for neglected diseases because the market would not provide enough profits to cover research and development costs. But with prizes, it does not matter that people in low and middle income countries cannot pay high prices for their drugs, because the pharmaceutical companies will be rewarded through the prize. The prize system can either be voluntary or non-voluntary. If the prize system is voluntary, a pharmaceutical company can choose between a monopoly profit or a prize reward.
But really, a voluntary prize system does not address price abuses that exist in the current system. If the prize system is voluntary, a pharmaceutical company can and will opt for the greater sum between monopoly profit or the prize reward. So the committee giving the prize is forced to offer a really high reward to keep pharmaceutical companies from choosing the monopoly profits.
This difference between voluntary and non-voluntary systems is especially important in developed countries. Prizes for type 2 and type 3 diseases will likely be the only significant reward for innovators in developing countries. But prizes for type 1 diseases will have to compete with monopoly profits, and therefore will be less attractive. So, only the non-voluntary prize system ensures that the important benefits of prizes extend to all diseases.
Another question is whether the prize system will apply to all drugs or some drugs. If the prize system applies to all drugs, then it forces pharmaceutical companies to forego the legal monopolies. However, if it only applies to some drugs, the prize system can target neglected diseases and will, in the future, expand to reward innovation for all diseases.
James Love does not fully explain who will be in charge of the committee that runs the prize fund. He speculates that the government will award the prize. There is a serious risk of corruption if the committee is governed by bureaucratic officials rather than by the people who are aware of the health issue.
I promise to take money from the people who don't vote for me and give it to the people who do. Pollution has vitamins.
I like how he makes me feel.
Love says the prize system should be a global partnership, where both low and high-income countries contribute money to the prize fund. The global partnership would give low and middle-income countries the bargaining power they need to insist that large pharmaceutical companies develop drugs that they need and cannot produce themselves.
There are many possible ways to determine the size of the prizes. One way is by compensating the estimated lost revenue for the particular drug. But history shows that small prizes have been sufficient to stimulate innovation.
In 1927, the $25,000 Orteig Prize for the first non-stop flight between New York and Paris was won by Charles Lindbergh. It stimulated passenger travel and the birth of today's $300 billion aviation industry.
The prize, therefore, does not need to cover all the estimated lost revenue.
A second way to determine the size of prizes is by compensating pharmaceutical companies' innovations on a case-by-case basis. Taking into account the company's actual investment in research and development and the impact on healthcare outcomes, the prize system offers a fair reward.
The initial reaction of the pharmaceutical industry was largely negative, which is pretty easy to understand. If the prizes work for type 2 and type 3 diseases, like TB diagnostics and Chagas disease, maybe the idea will spread to more lucrative markets of the type 1 diseases.
Pharmaceutical companies have already begun to mobilize.
But among experts, it is well known that the pharmaceutical industry is not working. And for a long time, economists have seen prizes as a possible alternative to systems of exclusive marketing rights. Recently, the idea of prizes has been gaining momentum.
We've given you a snapshot of how the market for pharmaceuticals is failing and why the prize system is a better alternative. But there is still way more to talk about.
Like, what about Bernie Sanders?
Yeah!
In 2005, he introduced a bill to Congress that was the first practical illustration of how a prize fund would operate, and it was really ambitious.
And there's also X Prize. It's a non-profit organization that offers prizes of more than $10 million to award specific innovations. Yeah, there's a lot going on. If you want to find out more, check out the Knowledge Ecology International website.
And the website has a lot of interesting updates of what's happening today with the prize system.
That's all we've got for now.
We hope you had fun with us. Bye.
See you.